before we get further into it. So meal prep looks different for everyone. So again, we're gonna share different ways that you can meal prep for hopes that it works best for you. So objectives today, understand the benefits of meal prep, learn how to prepare for meal prep success, learn how to plan and execute meal prep, learn techniques that work with your lifestyle and your goals. We know that everyone is different. And discover some easy and healthy recipes that maybe you can use this week or next week. So let's get started. Knowledge versus execution. How many of you would wish for a personal meal prep assistant who knew all the foods that you and your family liked, the nutrients that you need for your personal goals, and the amount of times you eat per day? How many of you would love that personal chef? Yeah, that would be amazing. I think we'd all agree that that would be, wonderful, but let's get back to reality. Most of us don't have the privilege of having that. And also most of us know that this idea of prepping in advance is good, but there's a difference between knowledge and this like want to have a personal chef or whatever versus execution. So there are ways to make it easy and ways to make it achievable for us, the everyday folk. So that's the goal today. So first things first, please remember that there is no one size fits all. And I kind of mentioned that in my introduction. So to some people, prepping meals for the whole week is totally doable. For others, it is simply not, and that is okay. My first ask for you guys is to just find an area that you want to improve. So maybe that's one meal a day. So maybe right now you tend to leave work or purchase something for lunch in the cafeteria. So maybe you're like, I want to work on meal prepping just for my lunches. Maybe you want to prep meals for 2 or 3 days of the week and then kind of figure out the rest of the week. So it doesn't have to be this picture perfect thing. Let's see some other examples. If you have a large family or a family of like maybe more than 1 or 2 people, maybe your meal prep looks like pre-chopping your vegetables, marinating your meats or proteins, and cooking grains ahead of time to store in the freezer or refrigerator for some quick dinners at night. Those are little things that you can do or just kind of prep in advance to make some of your meals easier. If you don't prefer to pre-cook your proteins, you can marinate them like the morning or night before and then pop them in the oven or stir fry them for dinner. So starting small is key. Remember that. Starting small is key, especially if you are new to this idea of meal prep. Another thing that is key is consistency. So once you get into the habit of making these small changes, once you find some recipes or foods that you enjoy, it really starts to become pretty easy and, a habit. So some benefits of meal preps or of meal prep, some of these, right? Removing stress, saving money is a big one, exploring new recipes, even bonding with family members. So take a moment here to put in the chat which of these you are most interested in benefiting from meal prep, or even some additional ones that are not included on this list. So maybe share just one goal. So why do you want to start meal prepping? Go ahead and share that in the chat. Yeah. So let's start off with, since I'm hearing a lot of money and time, let's start off with how you can save money. So just meal prepping alone, or even if it's just like 2 or 3 meals of the week, right, can save you money. So an example is $8 at Chipotle for 1 meal, or 2 meals if you're able to split it. Could be $8 worth of chicken breasts for a whole week of meals. So it really makes a huge difference. So a few tips to keep in mind when it comes to saving money. Canned foods do tend to be cheaper. So I would encourage you guys to incorporate canned meals as necessary. Of course, watch the sugar and sodium, but you can buy like no sodium black beans, for example, or no sodium green beans and such. So I personally love to have like this stock of vegetables and beans and such that are canned. They're cheap, they're easy, and I kind of always have a go-to meal because it's always in my pantry. Complementary protein. So again, with beans, you can add beans to meals. You can pair with whole grains to provide an adequate amount of protein, so a full protein. Combine beans with animal protein to kind of stretch your protein with different meals. Sales items. So when you go to the grocery store, really look for those BOGO items or sale items, especially when it comes to canned foods or frozen foods. It can really save a lot of money, and you can store those things for future meals. So just being intentional about those things can make a huge difference when it comes to the money. And just know there is a price of convenience. So you may notice that there are some fruits and vegetables that are pre-cut. They tend to be quite a bit more expensive than the whole fruits and vegetables that you can buy. So keep with that in mind. Think about what's best for you. If it's worth it to buy the pre-cut fruits and vegetables because it saves you time, go for it. If you're like, you know what, I can spend the 5 minutes it takes to cut up a pineapple, I'm going to save some money. Make that choice next time. So these are some things I want you guys to just keep in mind during this presentation. Here are some examples of some money savings. McDonald's meal for 4, pretty pricey. There's this idea that fast food is fast and cheap. Yes, it is fast, but it is not as cheap. Not saying that you can't eat fast food now and then. We do know it's convenient, and sometimes we just, it's just the best thing for our family in that moment. But a meal of chicken, potatoes, salad for 4 is a lot cheaper. So if you ever find yourself getting stuck where you're just buying food out or ordering takeouts, just remember that really does add up. And many of us got into a habit with that during the pandemic. I certainly did. So give yourself some grace. It'll take a while to get back into the habit of, eating more at home, but you guys can do it. We can do it over time, just baby steps. Here's another example, pinto beans and rice for 4. Super simple, cheap ingredients. I will say having maybe even 1 vegetarian meal per week is not only tends to be better for your health, but it's cheaper. So see if you can incorporate some vegetarian meals, and maybe even throw in some bacon there, you can see there. But yeah, that certainly goes a long way. And again, this idea of meal prep, it can be as simple as just making enough 1 to 2 nights of a week where you have some leftovers for lunch, or you can stick some in the freezer for later on. Saving time and money. Okay, if you guys have questions or comments, feel free to put it in the chat. Again, I have a lot of content, so I'm going to go a little bit quickly, but I want to make sure to save some time to go back through those at the end and maybe talk through some things. But another great tip for meal prep is when you buy your ingredients in the grocery store, think about ingredients that you can overlap into multiple meals. Someone said they hate the idea of eating the same thing over and over or multiple times of the week. Amen. I am there with you. I do not like the idea of traditional meal prep. I want to change things up. So here's an example of utilizing ground turkey, which one is not super expensive, and two is very versatile. So maybe making some easy turkey meatballs for one meal, and then repurposing the turkey into some kale and ground turkey and vegetable taco filling for another meal. So it can help stretch your dollar, it can help change things up, and even like improve your own creativity, right? Help you be better in the kitchen by fostering that excitement and creative juices. And it kind of, you know, it can help you stick to this whole meal prep concept. So in the chat, if you guys want to share maybe a way that you've done this or an idea that you have for overlapping ingredients, I will share something that I personally do quite often. So I will buy a bunch of vegetables, onions, carrots, tomatoes, peppers, you know, whatever it is. What I'll do is I will chop them, prep them, clean them, and I will split them in half. So the first half I will decide to cook that night, but I'll save the other half in the fridge for another night. And the plan is to, with one of the vegetables, use a certain flavor profile. So maybe I will use it with some Indian flavors. So I'll saute those vegetables and maybe even use like a pre-made curry sauce, right? And then add a protein and some other things. And I've got this delicious like Indian flavor meal. And then the second half, maybe a few nights later, I will saute those vegetables, but with a totally different flavor profile. Maybe I will add some black beans. I will add some like cumin and garlic powder, chipotle, and make a filling for burritos. So it's really about finding what you like, what your family likes, and utilizing your ingredients in a way that keeps it exciting. Let's see. So we've got some examples in the chat. I'm not going to read those, but you guys read those yourselves. Those are some great ideas. All right. Next tip for success is to always have some staples in your pantry, in your kitchen, or wherever you store your things. So these are some ingredients that are wonderful to just always have on hand, because you can really just put them all together and make a really good meal out of them. So one is oats. So oats, you can use those for a cold oatmeal or even hot oatmeal breakfast, or oatmeal for some cookies, some oatmeal raisin cookies, right? Beans. So you could use beans as a plant-based protein. Again, you can just add it to some vegetables as a great like filling or meal over rice. You can add it to you can make a sauce creamier by blending up beans together and maybe adding some tomato sauce and oil and vegetables. Olive oil, let's see, you can add with a vinaigrette or some lemon as a salad dressing, or even just add it on top of a meal for a little bit of a healthy fat. And of course you can cook with it as well. Eggs, oh my gosh, I could have a whole presentation on how versatile eggs are, but boiling eggs to have as a snack, scrambling them for breakfast, using them in baking, all of those things. Frozen vegetables and fruit. So this idea that everything has to be fresh, or everything has to be, not frozen or canned, that's not really realistic for most people. It isn't for me. So I love having frozen vegetables always available that I can go to and add to my meals. Same thing with fruit. With frozen vegetables and fruit, what they do is they will pick vegetables and fruit at their peak season and flash freeze them. So unless there's sauces or flavors added, it's literally exactly the same as fresh vegetables and fruit. Again, watch out for like added sauces and added sodium and stuff. But let's see, garlic and onion, these are really easy, and even potatoes, easy to store. They last quite a long time in your pantry. Those are great flavors to add as like a base to any meal, really. Yeah, those are just some examples. Salt and pepper, sugar, all of those things. So I think that these are some great staples to have. And I'll probably send these slides out after, so don't feel like you have to write everything down or like take pictures of everything. I'll send these. Let's see, tools for success. So meal prep, you know, the part of the ease of meal prep is having the tools to be able to cook some of these bulk meals. So a crock pot or Instapot are some great tools. For me, cookie sheets are a staple. I tend to, especially if my vegetables are about to go bad, I tend to chop everything up and throw it on a cookie sheet and bake it in olive oil and salt and pepper. And then I can kind of use these baked vegetables in different meals. I could even add it on top of rice or salads. So it's a really easy way to cook your vegetables. There's a lot of one-pan meal recipes that actually have you cooking your protein and vegetables on the same sheet at the same time, just at different times. So you would take your vegetables off and like keep cooking your chicken. There's endless recipes like that online. So I personally think that is super, super easy. Some other useful things when it comes to meal prep is having a large pot, having sharp knives. If you're prepping your vegetables or just cutting them and putting in a Ziploc bag for later, it makes a huge difference when you're not fighting with a blunt knife to just cut those vegetables up. Various mixing bowls, appropriate containers for storage. When it comes to storage and just like keeping meals in general, I think it's great to invest in glass items if you plan on using some of your dinner meals or leftovers for lunch and you want to heat those up. They're a little bit more expensive, but think about how many times you're using them, just kind of indefinitely. So I would say glass containers. For other meals that you're going to just eat cold, like salads or cold oatmeal, plastic reusable containers are great. So making sure that you have those tools so you're not stuck with all this food and then have nowhere to put it. That is a way to set you up for success. And then planning to succeed. So we've got 4 different sort of steps for planning your meal prep. So first things first is going to be visualize. And this is going to be like before you plan to go to a grocery store, or maybe this is like on a Saturday or Sunday, right? So visualize, what I mean is talking to your family members, maybe discussing schedules, and figuring out like how many days you plan on prepping for your meals and which meals you'll be cooking. Maybe this week you're like, you know what? I think I want to prep all of my breakfast items. Maybe that's what you start with. So you decide that you're going to buy some vegetables, some eggs, and you're going to make like mini egg frittatas for your breakfast. Super easy to do in a muffin pan in the oven. And you can actually like freeze those too. So very easy. So maybe you just decide you're going to do that. So having this vision helps. Are you cooking for anyone that has a dietary restrictions? Keep that in mind. And are there any days or evenings where you plan to go out for a meal? So maybe you're like, oh, my friend's birthday is on Friday. We're definitely going to go out that night. I don't need to worry about cooking that night. Or maybe you're like, oh, this day I'm super busy, so I want a meal that is going to be super quick. So having this vision and having all these options is important. Some other things to keep in mind with visualizing, how many portions you're wanting of each recipe, and how that will affect your shopping list. So again, keeping these questions in mind when you're writing out your shopping list. So I guess one tip, if you don't write down a shopping list before you go to a grocery store, that alone is going to be very, very helpful. Do any of your meals have overlapping ingredients? So being intentional about that. So maybe you have on your list, you know what, I'm gonna buy some ground chicken this week. Which different meals do I want to use that for? Taco night and then meatballs, for example. So making sure you think about those things. There are some apps to help with this. There's one called Mealtime. It's designed around planning family meals for guests. You can create profiles and so on. So maybe even like researching some apps. Brainstorm. So brainstorm what you want to do and what meals you want to cook. So one thing that might be daunting when it comes to this idea of meal prep is following all these recipes. Like, oh my gosh, how am I going to have the time to follow these recipes like 3 different times a week? You don't have to follow a super strict recipe. There's a basic formula for success that I think is the easiest to follow. So 1 starchy carb, 1 protein, not 1 to 2 or 3 non-starchy vegetables, and a healthy fat. That's a healthy meal. Basic cooking techniques is sauteing your proteins and vegetables until they're at the, they're cooked to what you like. Using plenty of spices so that they taste good, whatever spices you like, and so on. So this formula is super, super useful. For me, I'm going to give you guys some examples of this formula, and of course you can take some pictures, but for me, an example that I have done plenty of times is I make some rice. Doesn't have to be whole grain. Of course, you're getting some more fiber when it comes to whole grain, but some rice, adding in some salt, some lime, some cilantro, then you've got a delicious cilantro lime starchy base. I like to take black beans and saute it with onions, bell peppers, and jalapenos, maybe even a habanero pepper because I really like spicy foods. So saute that together, maybe with some garlic and some spices. So add all of that on top of the rice and then top it with some sliced avocado. That's your healthy fat. So super easy, cheap meal, delicious, healthy, probably only takes maximum 20 to 30 minutes to make a meal like that. Not really following a recipe, but kind of using this formula to help. Here are some other examples. Again, the more familiar and the more that you kind of use this formula, the more creative you can get when it comes to your combinations of things. Let's see, someone has a question. Do you drizzle olive oil, salt, and pepper over the sheet before roasting? Yes, and someone answered that. Yeah, so roasting vegetables, super easy. You can drizzle it and kind of mix it all together, but add all of that before you roast it, and it'll make it kind of nice and crispy. Usually I'll roast my vegetables. If I'm roasting potatoes, it takes a little bit longer, but for vegetables, 350 to 400. Make sure everything has its own space on the pan, so try not to like overlap it. But usually it just takes about 20 minutes or so to roast. Moving on the go, of course, it makes things easy if you prep some snacks for your days. So when it comes to snacks, this idea of divide and conquer makes it pretty easy. So maybe you want your snacks this week to be hummus and vegetables. Go ahead and prep your vegetables, cut up your bell peppers and carrots and, package them in containers, and then you're already portioned out, ready to go. Add your hummus, you're good to go. Maybe you decide it's best for you to buy pre-made packaged snacks. Nothing wrong with that. Whatever makes your life easier. And you can just be more intentional about choices. If you're trying to be healthy, and maybe you want to spend a little bit more money for convenience, you buy the pre-packaged hummus and pretzel snack that they have available. So there's smoothie prep. I want to say that someone put that in the chat. Hard-boiled eggs in batches for a quick grab-and-go snack. Lots of protein there. Mason jars with plain yogurt. You can add berries. That's a great snack as well. Or even just buying yogurt packages. Yogurt doesn't have to be breakfast. It could be a great healthy snack. Trail mix, portioning out that trail mix. Really, the ideas or the options are endless. Here's a quick recipe. You can take a snapshot of this. Some homemade granola bars. Really saves a lot of money. Super healthy, delicious. I have not made this recipe, but one of our old interns actually sent this recipe, and she made it all the time. So it has been made before, but very, very easy. So, I know I went through a lot. And again, this is why I wanted you guys to really intentionally pull out some tips and some pieces that maybe you didn't know before, or maybe you want to try this week that you will find useful for yourself. Let's see, I'm going to go up and see if there's any questions that I've missed. If you have any additional questions, feel free to put those in the chat. Someone said, I love to cook, but I hate to prep. Want to reduce my time spent doing the prep. So think about, if this is something with you, think about what time is spent doing those prep, or maybe you even spend 2 different nights prepping. You don't have to do it all at once. So maybe one night you clean your vegetables and you stick it in the fridge, and then the next day you chop everything up. Then you're good to go for the rest of the week. Makes a huge difference. Let's see. Here's some more examples. Yeah, so smoothies, you can measure them out in advance, or you can even prep your vegetables and just make smoothies. Yeah, I want someone to wash the dishes. I agree with that. Yeah, so when you're roasting your vegetables, make sure you don't use too much olive oil. Be really light on it. That's a great point. Yep. Splitting up the meal prep on the weekend, pick recipes, buy ingredients on Saturday, do cooking on Sunday. And again, you're not having to do all recipes at once. Yeah, all right. Any other questions? It's not as hard as you think. Baby steps at a time, choose one meal you want to prep, or maybe you decide to kind of expand different ingredients to have different flavors or different meals, so that you are not, eating the same thing every single meal. But be creative, and then practice makes perfect. It does take time, but it will get easy and it will get fun. You guys will be experts in no time. Stay tuned for my written out examples and presentation. And thank you guys so much for joining. It has been a pleasure. Hope you have a great day. Find something that you would like to do this week. Other than that, we are finished. Bye, guys.